And I'm going to do this and let y'all get started, and then I'll do the box probably next week or so. Coptic binding, it's ancient. It comes from Africa, Egypt, someplace like that, like way far away. It is a very straightforward, very simple binding, and once you learn it, it's probably going to be your go-to. Like right now, I don't know what your go-to binding is. I'm guessing maybe Japanese stab stitch, but this one's much easier, but it is a stitched binding. So we do learn to do a sewing technique. So Coptic binding has the cover and your signatures the same width. You have to have folded signatures like those that Tori's working on right there, because you have to have your stitching into the signature. Unlike the Japanese stab stitch, which was, you can do a single leaf sheet paper, Coptic is like long stitch, has to be done with a folded signature. You can do any number of things with a Coptic, just like you can do any number of things with our long stitch. You can make signatures that fold out. You can do decorative with plain. You can put accordion inside of Coptic stitch. There's all, once you learn all of the techniques, it's infinite variation. But I cut my signatures the same size as my cover. You have to have this flush to do the Coptic stitch. You can't have your bookbinding board larger than, because it creates an overhang and you can't get in to get the stitch. All right, so you have to do it flush. I have clipped my covers and my signatures together. This is a great binding for using a sewing frame, which we've not talked about a sewing frame, but I have instructions. If you wanted to build your own, you can make a chair into a sewing frame if you want. Basically, it's a frame that you put vertical strings on, and then you can sew on that. It's how we sew with stitches and onto ribbons and stuff. But Coptic, you don't have to have that, but you do have to have something to keep it close together. You can mark your holes. You don't have to have any set number. You can do as many holes as you like. But they are going to be about 1/4 of an inch in from the edge. Too close, and it rips a hole in your cover. If you're doing Coptic with a soft cover, like a paper or a cardstock, then you absolutely want to honor that rule of 1/4 of an inch in. Any longer, then you've got too long of a stitch. So you need it close to the cover, not too close, not too far away. All right? Once you mark your holes, then you can do a couple of things. You could take your cover board and actually use it as a mother sheet and mark your signatures and use the sewing cradle to punch your holes in the signature. But a quicker way is to do this. So I lined it all up and I clamped it together. Then I'm going to take my triangle or a ruler, and I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to line my holes up. Hopefully I've got them pretty good. Mark it with a pencil, and then take my X-Acto knife and cut. Just run a line straight down. And basically, I'm cutting a series of holes in the signature, and they're lined up. So it's just a faster way and a straighter way to get your signatures, get holes in your signatures so that you can sew. If you'll do it like this, then your stitch line right here will be relatively straight. It'll be straighter than if you try to do it individually. No right or wrong way on that one, but okay. Hold on, let me do the rest of them. Okay. And I marked it because in the event that my blade doesn't cut a signature, I've got one where it didn't quite slice through, I have a mark, and I can just use my needle to punch there. All right? Okay. So, now, I'm going to start with You can do this any number of ways. I start on the back. I'm going to take my whole text block and lay it like this. And then on the Coptic stitch, you're going to use a curved needle. And you've got to start with one signature and the end of the board. All right. So I'm going to start my stitch on the inside of the signature. And I'm going to take my needle, run it through the hole. It is in this book, more so probably than any of the other books that you have done, that you're going to have to learn about tying a square knot to add more thread. You will run out of thread. You don't want too much thread in the beginning because it's too much to work with. And you heard me tell the story of the group Coptic stitch session that we had one summer in Hansford Hall. Did I tell you that story? I told you that story, didn't I? I'm running through the first hole in the cover. My covers are not covered. Yours will be. You will cover them before you do the stitching. In sheets also. So, I have pulled the thread through the signature, through the cover, and I'm lining up. The thing that I'm being conscious of as I go is that I'm lining up the signature with the edge and the edge of my cover at the same time. It is very common to let this happen and to keep on stitching and to let it get loose on you, but you want to constantly be making sure that you are sewing like this. This is why a sewing frame is handy. It's because you can work vertically. All right. So then I'm coming, the cover is the hardest part, and the end sheet. I'm going to come around the cover, curved needle underneath that stitch. Little tug, just a slight tug. When you are doing Coptic, you don't ever, ever, ever want to tighten anything too tight. Why? It will rip through your paper and you will lose a signature. Okay, so I came out of my cover, I went around the stitch between the signature and the board. I'm on the other side of it now. And now I'm going to go back through the hole of the signature. I don't know if I can tell a story and do this at the same time. So one summer, I decided that it would be easier and better to teach Coptic stitching as a group, as opposed to doing a demo and then having to repeat myself over and over. So everyone got their book, we all started at the same time, everything was going good, and by the second signature, everyone was in a different place. There was thread everywhere. And it got tangled, and I had upwards of 18 students, and the thread that was, this size, twice as long as this, was all in the floor, and it all got tangled up in a big mass of thread. Like everybody's thread tangled all in one big ball. It was crazy. So we had to cut everybody, and we had to start over. And it didn't work. My group demo did not work. My plan. It confused everyone. Everyone was waiting and bored or not getting caught up. So we're back to this. All right, so now I'm moving to the second hole in my signature. Now, if you want, now is the time for you to tie a little knot right here. Kind of just tie it off. Waxed thread is preferred for Coptic stitch because it's not stretchy. And with Coptic, you don't want it to stretch. It can stretch very easily, and then your book gets loosey-goosey. So you want a waxed thread so that it holds. All right, so I'm out of the signature now. I'm going to go around my book cover. Tightening, but not over tightening, just tugging, checking the inside. And you don't ever want to pull from here. You want to tug from here, tug out here, and then tighten, because it'll over tighten if you don't. Okay. Then I'm going to take my needle, go through not through the hole of the signature, but between the signature and the bookbinding board. And then back into the hole in the signature. Being careful not to split my thread. If I split my thread, it's all over. I have to cut it and redo. Okay? The third. So now I'm going to bounce down to the third hole in the signature. Found it. This. I'm going to come out. Is it easier for you if I turn this way? No? Oh, well.
I'm trying.
I come out the signature. I'm going to go around through the board. You see why a curved needle is easier? Tighten. I'm going to tighten inside, tighten outside. I'm going to loop around that stitch. And then I have just sewn the first signature onto my board. This is the only signature that gets attached to the board. Every other signature gets attached to the signature before it, which makes Coptic stitch really ideal for like ancient manuscripts that like where deed books, and that would birth records that would constantly be changing, because you can take the top of the cover off, undo the stitching, and then add more. So they literally, Coptic can just get thicker and thicker and thicker. Hence the Coptic challenge that I do down. All right. Now,